The transport ship hummed quietly as it approached Verdania Prime. Through the wide windows, the students could see a green world covered in thick jungle. The planet looked beautiful from space, but everyone knew it was one of the most dangerous places in the galaxy. Hyunwoo Kim pressed his face against the cold glass and watched the swirling clouds below. At 22, he was the only human in the group of 13 students. The others came from different alien worlds, and most of them were much stronger and smarter than humans were supposed to be. "Look at that primitive planet," said Taemin, Park, the group leader. His crystal body sparkled as he spoke. "It will be easy for us to survive there for 2 days." The other students nodded and agreed. They had the best equipment and technology from across the galaxy. So Young Lee floated near the ceiling, her energy form glowing softly. "My atmospheric readings show the air is safe to breathe," she announced. "But there are strange energy patterns in the jungle." Woo Jin Choi used his forearms to check their survival gear. "Our scanners and weapons will keep us safe," he said confidently. "This is just a school trip." Hyunwoo stayed quiet and looked at his simple scanner. It was showing readings that did not match what the others were seeing. The jungle below seemed to be watching them, waiting for something. But when he tried to tell the others, they just laughed. "Humans worry too much," said Yoonji Kang, spreading her large wings. "That is why your species needs our protection." The ship landed at the edge of the jungle with a soft thud. Professor Veltar, a tall insect-like creature, gathered the students around him. His 6 eyes looked at each student carefully. "Students, this is a survival exercise," the professor said in his clicking voice. "You must walk 15 kilometers through this jungle to reach the pickup point. You have 48 hours. Collect plant samples along the way for your reports." He gave each student an emergency beacon. "Use these only if someone is dying. The jungle of Verdania Prime has killed many trained soldiers, but you are the best students in the galaxy. Work together and you will be fine." The professor returned to the ship, which flew away quickly. The 13 students stood at the jungle entrance, looking at the wall of green trees and thick vines. Strange sounds came from deep inside the jungle. Birds called to each other with voices that sounded almost like warnings. Taemin activated his crystal scanner. "The path is clear for the first 2 kilometers, he announced. "We should reach the extraction point by tomorrow evening." The group entered the jungle in a neat line. Their boots crunched on the thick layer of dead leaves. Tall trees blocked most of the sunlight, making everything look green and shadowy. Vines hung down like ropes, and strange flowers glowed with soft blue light. Jaehyun Moon, whose species shared thoughts with each other, suddenly stopped walking. "Something is wrong," he said. "I cannot connect to the orbital support team anymore." "Just interference from the plants," So Young said, though her glow became dimmer. "We will be fine." As they walked deeper, Hyunwoo noticed that his scanner was acting strangely. It showed life forms all around them, but the alien scanner showed nothing dangerous. He also noticed that the glowing spores in the air seemed to avoid him, but they stuck to his alien classmates. "The jungle feels alive," Hyunwoo said quietly to himself. After 3 hours of walking, they stopped to rest and eat. That was when the jungle showed its true nature. Woo Jin was checking his equipment near a large tree when thick vines suddenly shot out like snakes. They wrapped around his arms and legs before he could move. "Help me!" Woo Jin screamed as the vines lifted him into the air. The other students ran to help, using their tools to cut the vines. But more vines came from everywhere, and these vines had thorns that dripped with poison. Taemin used his crystal blade to cut Woo Jin free, but it was too late. The poison had entered Woo Jin's body through small cuts. His 4 arms became stiff, and he could not move them anymore. "We need to get him to the medical station," Yoonji said, but they were still 14 kilometers away from help. As the sun began to set, strange, howling sounds came from deep in the jungle. The sounds got closer and closer. So Young tried to use her energy to light their way, but the jungle plant seemed to drink her light like water. "My power is getting weaker," she said, fear in her voice for the first time. Hyunwoo looked around, carefully. His human eyes were better in the dark than most alien eyes. He could see shapes moving between the trees, watching them. The shapes were big and moved without making any sound. "We are being hunted," he told the others. "Impossible," Tae-min said. "Our scanners would detect any large predators." But Hyunwoo was right. As darkness fell completely, the attacks began. Shadow creatures that could not be seen except for their glowing eyes surrounded the group. The alien weapons could not lock onto targets they could not see clearly. Yunji tried to fly up to escape, but acid rain began falling from the sky. The acid burned her wings and she crashed back to the ground, unable to fly anymore. One by one, the students fell to the jungle's tricks. The plants seemed to know exactly how to hurt each alien species. Jaehyun collapsed when strange fungi made him forget how to think clearly. 2 more students disappeared into the darkness, their screams cut short. By morning, only 7 students were still alive. Woo Jin could barely walk and 3 others were badly hurt. Their advanced technology was useless against an enemy that seemed to learn from every attack. "We have to split up," Tae-min said desperately. "Maybe some of us can reach the extraction, point and call for help." Hyunwoo looked at his dying classmates and made a decision. "I will go alone," he said. "I am the fastest runner." The others were too scared and tired to argue. As Hyunwoo walked away from the group, he heard more screams behind him. The jungle had claimed most of his friends, and now it was coming for him too. But something strange was happening. The plants that had attacked the others seemed to ignore Hyunwoo. The glowing spores still avoided him, and the predator calls seemed more distant. It was as if the jungle was curious about the human instead of trying to kill him immediately. Hyunwoo did not know it yet, but he was about to learn why humans were special in ways that no alien species understood. The second day in the jungle was when everything went completely wrong. Hyunwoo had been walking alone for 6 hours when he heard the screams. He turned back toward where he had left his classmates, but the screams stopped suddenly. The jungle became eerily quiet. His emergency beacon buzzed with a message that made his heart sink. 10 students were now marked as dead. 2 were missing. He was the only one still moving toward the extraction point. Hyunwoo sat on a fallen log and tried to understand what was happening. The jungle around him was beautiful but deadly. Every plant seemed designed to kill, and every animal was a predator. Yet somehow he was still alive when stronger and smarter beings had died. He looked at his simple human scanner again. It was showing life forms everywhere, but they were not attacking him. A small monkey-like creature watched him from a nearby tree. Its eyes were intelligent, almost curious. When Hyunwoo moved slowly, the creature did not run away. "You are not afraid of me," Hyunwoo said softly to the creature. "But you were afraid of the others." As he walked deeper into the jungle, Hyunwoo began to notice patterns. The dangerous plants only attacked when they felt threatened. The predators only hunted when they smelled fear or aggression. His alien classmates had come into the jungle with weapons and scanners, treating it like an enemy to defeat. But Hyunwoo was different. He was curious instead of aggressive. He watched and learned instead of trying to control everything around him. The jungle was teaching him, and he was listening. On the 3rd day, he found the remains of other expeditions. Alien military equipment lay scattered among the trees, broken and useless. He saw the skeletons of warriors from species known across the galaxy for their fighting skills. Even they had died here. But Hyunwoo also found something else. Near each group of remains were small piles of certain plants. The jungle had tried to help them, offering food and medicine, but the alien soldiers had been too proud or too scared to accept help from a primitive planet. Hyunwoo tasted one of the plants carefully. It was bitter but nutritious. His human stomach could digest it when alien stomachs could not. He gathered more of the plants and continued walking. That evening, he made his first real discovery about the jungle. He was looking for a safe place to sleep when he heard a sound that made him freeze. It was a low growling that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Shadow stalkers, the apex predators of Verdania Prime. These creatures were invisible to most, eyes and silent when they moved. They had killed more explorers than any other species on the planet. Hyunwoo should have been terrified, but instead he found himself fascinated. He climbed carefully into a tree and watched. The shadow stalkers were hunting, but not randomly. They moved in patterns like dancers following music only they could hear. They were beautiful in their deadliness. As Hyunwoo watched, he began to understand their patrol routes. They avoided certain areas where specific plants grew. They hunted at specific times when their prey was most vulnerable. They were not evil monsters. They were just very good at surviving. Over the next 2 days, Hyunwoo learned to move when the shadow stalkers were resting. He learned which plants would mask his scent and which paths were safest to use. He was not fighting the jungle anymore. He was becoming part of it. His human body helped him in ways he had never expected. He could sweat to cool down in the hot jungle air. He could eat many different types of plants that would poison other species. His eyes could see well in both bright and dim light. His hands could grip things tightly and also manipulate small objects with great care. Most importantly, his human brain was designed to recognize patterns and adapt to new situations. While the aliens relied on their specialized abilities and technology, Hyunwoo used his general intelligence and flexibility. On the 5th day, something amazing happened. Hyunwoo was following a stream when he heard a sound he had never heard before. It was a deep, rumbling growl filled with pain and frustration. He followed the sound carefully, staying hidden behind trees and bushes. What he found took his breath away. A massive void panther was trapped in an ancient alien snare. The creature was 3 times larger than any Earth panther, with fur so black it seemed to absorb light. Its eyes glowed with intelligence and fury. Void panthers were legendary even among the galaxy's most dangerous predators. They were said to be nearly impossible to kill and completely impossible to tame. This one had been caught in a trap that looked like it had been set by a previous expedition. The panther had been struggling for days. Its paws were bloody from trying to break free. It was weak from hunger and thirst, but its eyes still burned with fierce pride. Any sane person would have walked away. Any smart person would have reported the location and let the authorities handle it. But Hyunwoo was neither completely sane nor completely smart when it came to helping creatures in pain. He studied the trap for an hour, figuring out how it worked. Then he did something incredibly stupid and incredibly brave. He walked into the open where the panther could see him clearly. The great cat's eyes focused on him immediately. Its lips pulled back to show teeth as long as Hyunwoo's fingers. A growl like thunder rolled from its throat. "Easy," Hyunwoo said softly, the way he used to talk to stray cats back on Earth. "I am not here to hurt you." He moved very slowly, keeping his hands visible. The panther watched his every movement but did not try to strike. Maybe it was too weak, or maybe it sensed something different about this small human. Hyunwoo began working on the trap mechanism. It was complex alien technology, but his human hands were good at solving mechanical puzzles. As he worked, he talked to the panther in a calm, steady voice. "You are beautiful," he said. "And you are strong. This trap cannot hold you much longer." The panther's growling became softer, almost curious. It watched Hyunwoo with those glowing eyes, as if trying to understand why this small creature was helping instead of running away. When the trap finally opened, Hyunwoo jumped back quickly. The panther was free, and now it could kill him easily, if it wanted to. But instead of attacking, the great cat just looked at him. Then it did something that changed everything. It lowered its massive head slightly, just enough to show that it understood what Hyunwoo had done. The panther limped away into the jungle, leaving Hyunwoo alone and amazed. He had just freed one of the galaxy's most dangerous predators, and somehow he was still alive. The morning after freeing the void panther, Hyunwoo woke to find fresh fish lying near his makeshift shelter. The fish had been cleaned and prepared, something no jungle animal would do naturally. He looked around carefully but saw no sign of who had left the gift. As he ate the fish, he felt eyes watching him from the shadows, not the hungry eyes of a predator, but curious eyes. The panther was still nearby, observing him. Over the next few days, a strange partnership began to form. The panther, which Hyunwoo started calling Baram after the Korean word for wind, would appear and disappear like a ghost. Sometimes Hyunwoo would find food waiting for him. Other times, he would hear Baram's warning growl when danger was near. Hyunwoo began to understand that he was learning from the greatest jungle survivor on the planet. Baram knew every safe path, every water source, and every plant that could heal or harm. The panther was teaching him without words, showing him how to truly live in the jungle. From Baram, Hyunwoo learned to move silently through the thick undergrowth. He learned to recognize the subtle signs that warned of dangerous areas. He learned which fruits were safe to eat and which leaves could treat cuts and infections. Most importantly, he learned to think like the jungle itself. The ecosystem was not random or cruel. It was complex and balanced. Everything had a purpose and everything had a place. The alien explorers had failed because they tried to impose their will on the jungle. But the jungle respected those who respected it in return. On his 7th day alone, Hyunwoo made a discovery that would change everything. Baram led him to a part of the jungle he had never seen before. The trees here were older and larger, their trunks so wide that dozens of people could not wrap their arms around them. At the center of this ancient grove was the most beautiful sight Hyunwoo had ever seen. A single tree that seemed to glow with inner light. Hanging from its branches were fruits that looked like jewels, some golden, some silver, some deep purple that seemed to hold starlight. Baram sat at the base of the tree and looked up at the fruits, then at Hyunwoo. The message was clear. This was important. Hyunwoo approached the tree slowly, feeling a sense of reverence that he could not explain. As he got closer, he could smell the fruits. The scent was incredible, like all the best things he had ever smelled combined into one perfect fragrance. But the tree was guarded. Strange creatures emerged from the shadows as Hyunwoo approached. They were not like any animals he had seen before. They seemed to be made of living crystal and flowing energy. Their eyes held ancient wisdom and fierce protection. Hyunwoo stopped moving and stood very still. He did not reach for his knife or try to run. Instead, he bowed respectfully to the guardians, the way he had been taught to honor elders back home. The crystal guardians looked at him for a long moment. Then they looked at Baram, who had come to stand beside Hyunwoo. Some silent communication passed between the panther and the guardians. One of the guardians stepped forward and touched Hyunwoo's forehead with a finger made of pure light. Images flooded his mind. The history of the jungle, the purpose of the tree, and the true nature of the fruits. The fruits were called eternal fruits, and they were one of the rarest things in the galaxy. Each fruit contained enough nutrition to sustain a person for weeks, and they had healing properties that could cure almost any disease. Galactic scientists had searched for them for centuries, but the trees only grew in the most dangerous places, protected by guardians who chose who was worthy. The guardians had been watching Hyunwoo since he entered the jungle. They had seen how he learned instead of conquered, how he helped instead of harmed, how he adapted instead of forcing others to adapt to him. Most importantly, they had seen his bond with Baram, something that should have been impossible. No off-worlder had ever bonded with a void panther before. The great cats were too proud and too wild, but Hyunwoo's human ability to form connections with other species, even dangerous ones, had impressed both Baram and the guardians. The guardian stepped back and gestured toward the tree. Hyunwoo was being given permission to take some of the fruits, but not as a thief or conqueror. He was being accepted as a friend of the jungle. Hyunwoo picked 3 fruits carefully, taking only what he needed. As he held them, he could feel their power, not just their nutrition, but their connection to the jungle itself. These fruits were a gift from the planet, a sign of trust and acceptance. The guardians faded back into the shadows, their duty complete. Baram rubbed against Hyunwoo's leg like a house cat, purring with a sound like distant thunder. The panther was pleased with his human friend. As they left the grove together, Hyunwoo realized that he had been completely wrong about what strength meant. The alien species he had studied with were strong in specific ways. They could fly, or think with crystal clarity, or manipulate energy directly. But they were also limited by those same specializations. Humans were different. They were not the strongest or fastest or smartest at any one thing, but they could adapt to anything, bond with anyone, and learn from everything. In a place like this jungle, where specialization could be a weakness, human flexibility was the ultimate strength. Bahram led him to a high cliff where they could see the jungle spread out below them. Somewhere out there was the extraction point where rescue teams would be waiting. Hyunwoo had been in the jungle for 8 days now, far longer than the planned 48 hours. The rescue teams probably thought he was dead, but he was very much alive, more alive than he had ever felt before. The jungle had not broken him, it had made him stronger. And he was not returning empty-handed. He had the eternal fruits which would revolutionize galactic medicine. He had detailed knowledge of jungle survival that no textbook could teach. And he had Bahram, a partnership that proved humans could connect with even the most dangerous creatures. As the sun set on his 8th day in the jungle, Hyunwoo looked at his panther friend and smiled. Tomorrow they would begin the journey back to the extraction point. He would return to the civilized galaxy, but he would never be the same. The quiet human, who had entered the jungle as the weakest member of his class, was gone. In his place was someone who understood what it really meant to be human in a galaxy full of aliens who had forgotten how to adapt, how to connect, and how to learn. The jungle had tested him and found him worthy. Now it was time to show the galaxy what he had discovered about the power of being human. The rescue team had been searching for survivors for 6 days when their scanners picked up an impossible reading. A single life form was approaching the extraction point from deep within the jungle. But according to their instruments, the person was walking calmly, not running from danger. Commander Voss, a veteran draconian warrior with scales like black armor, checked his scanner 3 times. "This cannot be right," he growled to his team. "No one walks casually through this jungle, especially not for 6 days. His second in command, a 4-armed Keltarian named Orcs, pointed at the scanner display. "Commander, look at this. The readings show 2 life forms now, but one of them is massive." Commander Voss felt his blood chill. The second reading matched the energy signature of a void panther, the most dangerous predator on the planet. If a student had somehow wounded or cornered one of the great cats, the rescue operation had just become much more complicated. "Prepare the heavy weapons," Voss ordered. "We may need to put down an angry panther to recover the body." But when Hyunwoo emerged from the jungle wall, the rescue team froze in disbelief. The young human walked into the clearing with steady steps, his clothes torn but his posture confident. Behind him, matching his pace exactly, walked the largest void panther any of them had ever seen. The panther's eyes swept over the rescue team with calm intelligence. It showed no aggression, no fear, no sign that it wanted to attack anyone. It simply walked beside the human like they were old friends taking a casual stroll. "Lower your weapons," Hyunwoo said quietly, as he approached the stunned soldiers. "Bahram will not hurt you unless you threaten him or me." Commander Voss stared at the impossible sight before him. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. Void panthers did not bond with other species. They certainly did not bond with humans, who were considered one of the weakest races in the galaxy. "Student Kim Hyunwoo?" Voss asked, his voice uncertain. "You have been missing for 8 days. What happened to the other students?" Hyunwoo's expression became sad. "They died on the first 2 days," he said simply. "The jungle defended itself against what it saw as invaders, but it accepted me as a guest." He set down his pack and carefully removed 3 glowing fruits. Even in the bright sunlight, the eternal fruits seemed to hold their own inner light. The rescue team gasped in recognition. "Those are eternal fruits," whispered Dr. Nala, the team's medical officer. "They have been extinct for over 1,000 years." "Not extinct," Hyunwoo corrected. "Hidden. Protected. The jungle only shares them with those it trusts." Bahram settled down beside Hyunwoo like a massive house cat, his purr rumbling like distant thunder. The panther's eyes remained alert, watching the strangers, but he showed no sign of hostility. Commander Voss activated his emergency communicator. Orbital Command, this is Rescue Team Alpha. We have found one survivor. He is healthy and accompanied by a void panther that appears to be tame. The voice that came back was filled with disbelief. Repeat that, Commander. Did you say tame? Void panther? Affirmative. The student has also recovered samples of eternal fruit. We need immediate transport and a full science team. Within an hour, 3 more ships had landed at the extraction site. Scientists, military officers, and university officials poured out to see the impossible sight of a human and void panther sitting peacefully together. Professor Veltar, who had sent the students into the jungle, approached carefully with his insectoid legs clicking on the ground. His 6 eyes all focused on Hyunwoo with a mixture of amazement and disbelief. Student Kim, the professor said formally, please explain how you survived when the others did not. Hyunwoo stood up slowly, and Baram rose with him. The great panther stayed close to his human friend, ready to defend him if needed. The others tried to conquer the jungle, Hyunwoo explained. They brought weapons and technology and treated everything as an enemy to be defeated. But the jungle is not evil. It is protective. It kills those who come to take and harm, but it accepts those who come to learn and respect. He gestured to Baram, who allowed Hyunwoo to rest a hand on his massive head. Baram was trapped by previous explorers who wanted to capture him. When I freed him, instead of trying to control him, he chose to trust me. The jungle saw this and decided I was different from the others. Dr. Yenna, a Vorthon energy being who specialized in xenobiology, floated closer to examine the fruits. These readings are incredible, she said. Each fruit contains enough nutrition for weeks of survival, plus healing compounds we thought were lost forever. How many did you find? Asked Administrator Kell, a Nexarian whose species valued knowledge above all else. I took only 3, Hyunwoo said, causing surprised murmurs among the gathered officials. The tree had hundreds, but I took only what I needed. The jungle guardians watched to make sure I was respectful. Commander Voss stepped forward, his warrior's mind struggling to understand. Student, you say the jungle has guardians? Intelligent guardians? The jungle itself is intelligent, Hyunwoo replied. It learns from every group that enters. It adapts its defenses based on what it faces. The alien military units that died here failed because they relied too much on their specialized strengths. The jungle learned to counter each strength specifically. He looked around at all the faces watching him. But humans are generalists. We adapt instead of specializing. We connect instead of dominating. The jungle did not know how to counter, that because it had never encountered it before. Professor Veltar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. You are saying that human traits we considered primitive are actually advanced survival adaptations? Not primitive, Hyunwoo said firmly. Different. Humans bond with other species because we evolved in groups with many different animals. We eat many types of food because we had to survive in many different environments. We solve problems in flexible ways because we could not rely on any single advantage. Baram stood up and stretched, his muscles rippling under his dark fur. The panther looked at all the strangers, and then at Hyunwoo, as if asking whether they should leave. It is okay, Hyunwoo told his friend. These people are not hunters. They are learners, like us. Dr. Nala approached slowly with her medical scanner. May I examine the fruits? The medical applications could revolutionize galactic healthcare. Hyunwoo nodded and handed her one of the fruits. But remember, these came from a living, thinking ecosystem. Any future expeditions must respect that. The jungle will share its gifts, but only with those who prove they can be trusted. As the day wore on, more and more officials arrived. Word was spreading quickly through the galaxy about the human who had survived at Deathworld and returned with extinct fruits and a void panther companion. News reporters arrived and tried to interview Hyunwoo, but Baram's presence kept them at a respectful distance. The great panther seemed to understand that his human friend needed protection from the overwhelming attention. By evening, the extraction site had become a temporary city. Scientists wanted to study the fruits, military leaders wanted to understand the jungle's defenses, and university officials wanted to rewrite their textbooks about human capabilities. But Hyunwoo was tired of all the attention. He sat with Baram at the edge of the camp, looking back toward the jungle they had left behind. "You miss it too, do not you?" he asked the panther quietly. Baram's purr was his answer. The great cat missed the freedom of the deep jungle just as Hyunwoo missed the simple clarity of survival. Tomorrow they would board a ship and return to the civilized galaxy. Their adventure was ending, but Hyunwoo knew that their story was just beginning. The galaxy was about to learn some important lessons about what it really meant to be human. 3 months after the Verdania incident, Hyunwoo stood before the Galactic Council in their great chamber on the capital world. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the massive hall, all wanting to hear from the human who had survived the impossible. Beside him, Baram lay calmly on a specially built platform. The great panther had become famous throughout the galaxy, the first void panther ever seen in civilized space. His presence alone proved that Hyunwoo's story was real. Admiral Kethmore, the proud leader of the Kethani military forces, stood to address the council. His species was known for their warrior culture and their disdain for weak races like humans. "Council members," the admiral began, his voice carrying across the chamber, "we are here to investigate how one human succeeded where our best soldiers have failed for centuries. 3 battalions of my finest warriors have died on Verdania Prime. Yet this young human not only survived but thrived." He gestured toward Hyunwoo with barely concealed frustration. "I demand to know what weapons or technology he possessed that our forces lacked." Hyunwoo stood up slowly, his hand resting on Baram's head for comfort. The panther's presence gave him strength to face the hundreds of alien eyes watching his every move. "Admiral, I had no special weapons," Hyunwoo said clearly. "I carried the same basic equipment as my classmates. The difference was not in what I brought to the jungle, but in how I approached it." Counselor Vexara, a wise Etherian who had lived for over 3 centuries, leaned forward with interest. "Please explain, young human. How does approach matter, more than strength or technology?" Hyunwoo looked around the great chamber, gathering his thoughts. "Your soldiers went to Verdania Prime to conquer it. They brought weapons to fight it, shields to defend against it, and scanners to control it. But the jungle is not an enemy to be defeated. It is a living ecosystem that protects itself." He activated a holographic display showing his journey through the jungle. "Watch how my classmates moved through the jungle compared to how I learned to move." The hologram showed the alien students marching in formation, their weapons ready, their scanners sweeping for threats. Then it showed Hyunwoo moving quietly, observing carefully, adapting to what he found instead of trying to change it. "The jungle responds to intention," Hyunwoo continued. "Those who come to take and destroy are seen as threats, but those who come to learn and coexist are welcomed." Administrator Zolan of the University Alliance spoke up. "But surely your survival was due to human physical advantages. Your species' endurance, perhaps, or your omnivorous digestive system." "Those helped," Hyunwoo admitted. "But the real advantage was something else, something most species lost when they became specialized." He gestured to Baram, who raised his great head and looked calmly at the assembly. "Humans can bond with other species because we evolved alongside many different animals. We learned to communicate with creatures very different from ourselves. This is why Baram chose to trust me." The chamber erupted in murmurs of discussion. The idea that human primitive traits were actually advantages challenged everything the galaxy believed about evolution and progress. Dr. Thane, the council's chief scientist, stood up with his datapad in hand. "The fruits you brought back have revolutionized our understanding of botanical medicine, but according to our analysis, the tree that produced them should not exist. The energy requirements alone should make it impossible." Hyunwoo smiled slightly. "That is because you are thinking about it wrong, Doctor. The tree does not create that energy alone. It is connected to the entire jungle ecosystem. Every plant, every animal, every microorganism contributes to its power. The tree is just the focal point of a massive cooperative network." He paused, to let that sink in. "This is another thing humans understand that most species have forgotten. Cooperation is stronger than competition. Working together with different abilities is better than trying to be superior alone. Counselor Miran, representing the trade guilds, asked the question everyone was thinking. What does this mean for future exploration, for our expansion into new worlds? It means we need to change how we approach dangerous planets, Hyunwoo replied. Instead of sending armies to conquer them, send explorers to understand them. Instead of bringing weapons, bring curiosity. Instead of trying to impose our will, try to find our place in the existing ecosystem. Admiral Kethmore slammed his fist on his podium. You speak of cooperation with planets that kill our people. How can we work with something that shows no mercy? Barum suddenly stood up, his muscles tensing. The great panther's eyes focused on the admiral with a look that made the warrior step back involuntarily. But Hyunwoo placed a calming hand on Barum's neck. The jungle showed me mercy when I showed it respect, Hyunwoo said quietly. Even Barum, the most dangerous predator on the planet, chose friendship over violence when I chose to help instead of harm. He looked directly at Admiral Kethmore. Your soldiers died because they saw the jungle as an enemy. But what if they had seen it as a potential ally instead? The Admiral's scales flushed with anger. But before he could respond, Counselor Vexara raised her hand for silence. This council has heard enough, the ancient Etherian announced. The evidence is clear. Young Hyunwoo has demonstrated that cooperation and adaptation can succeed where force and technology fail. She looked around the chamber at all the representatives. Therefore, this council officially recognizes humans as the galaxy's premier specialists in Deathworld exploration and ecosystem integration. Furthermore, we establish new protocols for dangerous planet exploration based on the methods this young human has demonstrated. The chamber filled with the sounds of approval from most species, though a few military representatives grumbled their disagreement. Over the following months, everything changed for humans in galactic society. Where they had once been seen as the weak species that needed protection, they were now sought after as guides and partners for the most dangerous missions. Universities across the galaxy began recruiting human students specifically for their Deathworld programs. Military forces requested human advisors to help them understand hostile environments. Even proud species like the Cathani began asking humans to train their soldiers in adaptive survival techniques. Hyunwoo and Baram became partners in a new research initiative, establishing the first permanent research station on Verdania Prime. They proved that long-term coexistence with Deathworlds was not only possible, but beneficial. The eternal fruits they had brought back led to medical breakthroughs that saved millions of lives across the galaxy. But more importantly, they proved that the galaxy's most dangerous worlds might also be its most valuable, if approached with wisdom instead of violence. Years later, when other humans began forming partnerships with dangerous creatures on deadly worlds, the phenomenon became known as the Hyunwoo effect. It described humanity's unique ability to find friendship where others found only enemies. The 12 students who died on that first expedition were never forgotten. Their sacrifice led to new safety protocols that saved countless lives in future explorations. A memorial on Verdania Prime honored their memory and reminded all visitors that the jungle demanded respect above all else. Hyunwoo often returned to that memorial with Barum at his side. They would sit quietly in the jungle clearing, listening to the sounds of the ecosystem around them. The jungle had accepted more human researchers now, but only those who followed Hyunwoo's example of patience and respect. We changed everything, did we not? Hyunwoo would sometimes ask his panther friend. Barum's rumbling purr was always the same answer. They had not changed everything. They had simply helped the galaxy remember what it meant to be part of something larger than themselves. In the end, the greatest discovery was not the eternal fruits or the jungle's secrets. It was the understanding that being human meant being connected to other species, to ecosystems, and to possibilities that others thought impossible. The galaxy had learned to see humans not as primitive creatures to be protected, but as bridges between the civilized and the wild, between the known and the unknown, between what was and what could be. And in the deep jungles of dangerous worlds across the galaxy, More humans walked beside creatures that had once been considered untamable, proving again and again that the greatest strength was not the power to conquer, but the wisdom to connect.